Hello friends, like I always do after few of my videos, I always share one of the message, one of the story, one of the parable from my favorite uh, book from Quran. Now at the beginning of this video, I would like to tell you that this is a parable from Quran. You can take it as a disclaimer. Now, the story, as I have mentioned in the title of the video, it is the backyard. Now, this is one story I would want you to understand how this backyard as a metaphor or as a symbol, I'm trying to explain it to you so that you can relate the same with your life. Now, as in my previous video, in a parable I told you, I shall not be using any gender, he or she, or whenever I use he or she, it has to be assumed that it's a male and a female both. And I'm giving the name as Quran had given the name as Woo. W-O-O, or it could be W-O. So the story goes like this. Woo had a backyard. So wherever he stays, he had a backyard. All through his life, it was very important for him. The backyard was very important for him. Like for so many of you, I'm talking to you, you also have a backyard. And it is very important for you. You might remember, you all must be remembering your childhood. You must be having some memories where you always relate yourself to that childhood. Many things that took place when you were a child. And in that yard, it is very important to understand how you grew, how you became a youth, being in that backyard. You must be remembering your backyard because when you were very small, it was where you played. So that was the foundation of your growth. You may remember the things that were added to it throughout the years. And the things that were there in the backyard remain the same even when you grew and became a youth. Some of these things were so stable, or perhaps you really counted on those things. The backyard, the word backyard that I'm going to use in this parable will represent the life of Woo. Or I would say it is the reality of Woo. Now, this reality has shaped early on when you were very young. And in case of this particular person called Woo, he remembers it very clearly. He remembers that the day his father brought or bought a tree. The tree was already big to Wu. It was quite a grown tree. And then his dad even bought a piece of equipment to dig a hole in the backyard so that they could plant the tree. The father dug a hole with this machine, the equipment, the machine that we call, and put the tree there. Now, who remembers, Wu, not who, Wu remembers that the whole reason for the tree was for Wu that he loved that tree. So when Wu was almost 5 years old, he remembers his dad saying, "This is going to be your personal tree or personal tree house. And when you are a little older, we will build that house for you together." And in fact, it happened also. Then number of years passed. Wu was watching this tree growing, becoming big. The branches were now larger and larger, and they eventually started supporting, and they started climbing up. And then what they did, the father and the son, they were trying to make a tree house on top of the tree. And when they finished making it, it was a beautiful tree house, strong enough. Now, the problem was to climb the tree house, they wanted a support. So, Wu's father found 2 barrels that we call as a drum, 2 barrels that were thrown as a trash somewhere, and it had the opening was cut. So what they did, they put the barrel upside down and they fastened it to the earth so that could become a step to climb the tree or the tree house. And it became the entrance. So you can say that the 2 drums were the entrance. Now, what happened, or what is most significant over here, is that through the years as they passed, the barrel stayed there permanently. They were very convenient and stayed over there, though the tree house was gone. See, the eventual idea was for the tree house. That is gone, but the barrel that was supporting someone to climb is permanently there, and now it became a picnic table. So we can, make, they were used as a buffet counter, or they would put a plank over that 2 drums and use it as a food counter. And they were very happy about it. There were many parties, and during these parties, that 2 drums were used. Interestingly, some of the neighbors even started joking on them that, everything is gone and the 2 barrels are still there. But Wu was not, was not disturbed or upset about it. Now, dear ones, what I'm trying to tell you is, in your backyard, when I say backyard, it's in your yesteryears. You also have got two barrels and you never moved it. Though the tree house is gone, the project is gone, you can't easily move them and you never really thought of doing it because they represented the core truth of your reality. There was someone, who taught you things that ultimately became your truth. In our life, there are few things that we pick up from the parents, then peer group, then your teachers, and that becomes the ultimate truth of your life. It becomes your stationary reality. And the belief that you have down in the core of your heart never moves. The reason you used these unmoving barrels as a truth all the time because it works for you always. Because even if the tree house is gone, that barrel now, if earlier it was the entrance to the tree house, now it is for the party. So you conveniently changed the role of the barrel, but you never decided to remove the barrels from there. Now let me change this story a little and tell you something about a playhouse. Because as I told you, this could be, could be a male or a female, and I told you in this story I'm not using any gender. So what if it is a female that I'm relating to, I'm talking to? A female is always attracted to a playhouse. So now, if I'm talking to a woman, to a lady, to a girl, to a female, like who as a boy had the tree house, as a female you have a playhouse. And it is a standalone playhouse because that is what always girls like. So woo if a boy, then it is a tree house. Woo if it's a girl, it's a playhouse. The backyard is also representing over here the inner child in that woo. And that is what is there in you also. It's a place where the birthday parties were done and your life started advancing. You had birthday parties, you had gatherings and all those things. The tree house or the playhouse were where you played house and where you pretended to make meals. So even if you couldn't cook, you were like, I remember my sisters used to mummy used to make small, those dough and then give it to them, and they used to play on a small rolling pin. And they used to only pretend that today we will act like mom, then tomorrow we'll act like a teacher. And they used to copy, they used to wear saris and all those things. That's what I'm talking about. Woo's tree was was long after the tree was gone. He was hanging on to the tree in his life and grew and grew. The idea of the tree house is gone, the playhouse is gone, but you never made any changes over there. So everything was there stagnant. The tree was growing, though it was not used as a tree house now. And in time to come, the tree grew very enormous. In fact, it was almost as big as the backyard itself. So the whole backyard, the tree covered the backyard itself. Now, what Wu is to do, he is to make his drink and come over there, and in the shade of that tree house, he used to sit and he used to use it as a place where he can be at leisure, rest, and he always felt that it is quite good for me. I can while away my time over here. And he used to always look at those two barrels, and looking at the barrels, he used to remember his childhood and used to always have those memories and enough gratitude for those memories also. The tree house is gone, but the playhouse somewhere is still there. And thanks for that, like, he used to say, thanks for that. He used to look at those things which were there, though the main purpose of it was defeated and it was not serving at all. Then what happened? Negative things started happening in life. Now, what is the negative things? He all of a sudden realized that there were some rats coming in that backyard. He doesn't like it. He never liked it. So he said to himself, we have rats. And of course, he knows they do not come from this yard, but it must have come through the fence from the neighborhood. So he started blaming the neighborhood. They came over from under the fence, and they started, and when there are rats, there are diseases, there are, there were damages to the things kept over there. And Wu was unable to tell, though it was in his mind that this is coming from the neighbor's place under the fence, but he was in a good relation with the neighbors, so he never told the neighbors anything. Because neighbors always appreciated him. So he said, okay, if I blame them, then maybe I lose that that place in their eyes. So it continued. The rat, of course, represents what? Now, since I'm telling you a story, now what that rat actually represents in this story is the ugly challenges in your life, that ugly challenges that you face day to day. They are the things that you wouldn't want to deal on the daily basis, but you do anyways, because you cannot blame the neighbor. You know they are coming from the fence, under the fence, and you have to deal with this because you cannot blame the neighbor. Then what happened? He started realizing there were snakes now. Wu didn't have had any idea how the snakes were getting into the yard. But he understood that the snakes would go under the tree or under the fence first, so that how smart are the snakes that, like the rat, they are making their way and they are coming over there because there are rats. So to feed on those rats, now snakes are coming inside. Now what is a snake in this story? Like the rat was the ugly challenges. Now what is a snake? A snake represents fear of something you can't fix ever in life. It was a fear of death, could be incurable diseases, a fear of whatever is beyond beyond the rats. Wu would say, I know how to deal with these things, I just get rid of them, or rather don't think about them, and then eventually return to the place where he can sit in the chair and take the drink or make a drink. He said, I am okay with it, because till today the rat never has caused any damage as such, or never was he bitten by the snake. Then what happened? Now the story here is very interesting. This is what I call the big shift. One day what happened? There came an earthquake. A big massive earthquake. Who remembers that he was sitting and sipping the drink, and all of a sudden the earthquake hit and it rumbled and swayed, and the big tree, almost cracked like a gunshot. And it came like, and the tree almost slammed one of the roof of the playhouse. Now here the playhouse and the tree, both together. Now Wu was looking around to see how much damage has been caused. The tree looked very different. The playhouse again very different, because the playhouse also had tumbled, because the playhouse never had a foundation. It was just a playhouse. Soon the authority from the municipal, we can call them as inspectors from the municipal, they came. They wanted to see what exactly happened. Because they make rules, because they are in charge of such things. Now the inspector represents any authority. When I say that inspector came from the municipal or whatever it is, from the forest department, in the parable I mean to say a authoritative being or entity comes into someone's life. Now the authority says to Wu, now get ready for this. You have to make some changes. And believe me, what happened? There was an earthquake, and when Wu was checking with the neighbors said, earthquake? We never felt the earthquake. And Wu was looking at the neighbor's backyard, it was perfect. So he was wondering how come the earthquake only came to that part of that backyard only. And they all were fine. It was only Wu whose backyard had the damage. Now Wu is an old soul. He had a very conscious mind, and he was always ready to evolve. He was fine with spiritual and a gentle growth in life. This earthquake shook his backyard, but wasn't even felt by the neighbors. So this person, Wu, is evolved person, an old soul, ready for a change. And so all that happened to his backyard, but it did not disturb the neighbor at all. The inspector came and said to Wu, let us talk about this tree. Now Wu immediately reacted and saying, if you are going to tell me that you are going to remove this tree, then I think you should leave, because I am not going to allow you to remove the tree. The tree will stay over here, whatever is the scene. The inspector was very kind. He tried to calm Wu and said, "No, Wu, the tree can stay. It's a good tree. However, it has become too heavy to be safe for you now." They said that they were giving him a lesson like about how Gaia, that means Mother Earth, takes care of its trees. They reminded Wu that in a forest, trees naturally prune or cut themselves or do away with their branches by the way of fire, insects, animals, okay, and it's a natural process that the pruning is done, the cutting down is done, and so they remain healthy, which is not the case with you. So the tree has grown, and it has grown more than it can take as its weight. The tree now needs to cut down, the branches has to cut down, make the tree more healthy now, and give the tree more longevity, more life. And they said if you would have done that by cutting and not allowing the tree to grow to such an extent, the tree would have been very healthy. But now, since you didn't do, it is so unstable. But we are sure it's going to work for you once we do the treatment. Now, friends, if you are understanding this story, you are seeing that Wu has undergone a shift. The earthquake is a shift itself. And that pruning of a tree, cutting of the tree, or trimming of the tree, that's the right word, means that his reality now needs to be adjusted to the energy he is living within, but not the energy from his past. Depending upon who's here or who is listening, I want to tell you one thing, that pruning of the tree or trimming of the tree, what I just mentioned, means you have to reevaluate yourself or your realities on a very regular basis, like trimming the tree on a regular basis. Wu has not done that, and most of us, we do not. The tree in itself is very simple. It's a tree. Now, Wu says to the inspector, "I do understand, but I don't want to watch this happening. I understand that you will trim the tree, but I cannot see that. I don't want to see it happening. Will you assure me that the tree is still alive or would be alive when you have finished with the process?" They replied, "Yes, Wu. Not just alive, but in new condition where it's going to live more than you yourself." And when the authorities took over the tree, and Wu didn't want it to watch that, Wu said, "I understand and I have to stay away, And so he left. After some time, when he returned back, when the pruning was finished, Wu came back and he didn't know what he was going to see. He walked into the backyard, he opened the back door, and he fell on his knees, weeping, crying, sobbing. Why? They had pruned it. They would kill it. Of course, this was not the case. They hadn't pruned it. When he came back, they had not pruned it. They didn't even kill it. But of course, what he could see, he never expected. The large tree was almost as thin as a very small, I won't say plant, but a tree itself. But there was no canopy now. The canopy he used to use, where he used to sit and drink, that is gone. There were no branches now. The branches were removed. So what happened? He felt that the tree, only the trunk is there, everything is gone. Now what can I expect? But over the time, the tree continued growing, and the new growth replaced very funny looking prune tree. Also, we realized later that the bugs no longer dropped. Like, there used to be bugs who used to drop in his drink also. It never dropped in the drink. And he also realized, who noticed something else as well. Now, since the canopy that used to give the shade to Wu is gone, but now there was a beautiful sunlight, and he now needs to wear sunglasses to sit over there. So, if you start trimming or pruning your life, the reality of yours, which you have clung on to from your past, you will see that now there is more light coming in. There is less of irritation now in your life. There is less of stress from the old canopy that you used to think was protective branches, but then those branches had bugs which was dropping in your drink. The inspector, who was a very wise man, said to Wu, "Oh Wu, I hope you didn't mind, but in the process of pruning the tree, we had to move the barrels also." Wu turned green. Oh my God, that barrel, my permanent, that entrance, my party table. Oh my God, you moved my barrels? Wu cried. And he said, the inspector said, yes, it had completely rusted from beneath and underneath also, and perhaps you never realized that these barrels were the place which was harboring the rats and the snakes. that you always felt it's coming from the neighbors, and neighbors are the cause of it. It's actually the two barrels that you kept over here. From there, these rats, that is the ugly challenges in your life, and snakes that are fears in your life. Because you never remove the barrels. Now look at the metaphor, look at the story. I know it's a pretty long video that I made, but understand what I'm talking about. Don't you think that we also need to change the backyard of our house? Don't you think we require decluttering our lives? Don't you think that the barrels have to go, the tree has to be trimmed or pruned? The playhouse where nobody was utilizing, it should have been gone long ago. This is the reason why the divine had created an earthquake. See, the earthquake never hit the neighbor, it only hit you. So when there is a calamity, when there is an accident, when there is a big jolt in your life, you know what happens? It is like it comes for a reason. It comes so that there is some damage. It comes so that there is an authority who comes into your life. It happens because then someone comes and tells you the correct way how to handle the tree, and when you're supposed to remove the barrels, so that the rats, the ugly situations are gone, the snakes, the fears are gone in your life. Friends, this is the story. I know it's a pretty long video that I have made, but watch this, understand this, and if you get the message very clear, things will change for you. Thank you so much.